Raggedy Ann Stories by Johnny Gruel. My mom read this to me a lot when I was little, and my sister. And it's really old. You can tell by the ripped up pages. Marcella liked to play up in the attic at Grandma's quaint old house way out in the country, for there were so many old forgotten things up there to find. One day when Marcella was up in the attic and had played with the old spinning wheel until she had grown tired of it, she curled up in an old horsehair sofa to rest. I wonder what's in that barrel way back in the corner, she thought as she jumped from the sofa and climbed over the two dusty trunks to the barrel standing way back under the eaves. It was quite dark back there, so when Marcella had pulled a large bundle of things from the barrel, she took them over to the dormer window where she could see them better. There was a funny little bonnet with long white ribbons. Marcella put it on. In an old leather bag, she found a number of tintypes of queer-looking men and women in old-fashioned clothes. So the tintypes are kind of a picture. And there was one picture of a very pretty little girl with long curls tied tightly back from her forehead and wearing a long dress and queer pantaloons which reached to her shoe tops. And then out of the heap she pulled an old rag doll with only one shoe-button eye and a painted nose and a smiling mouth. Her dress was of soft material, blue, with pretty little flowers and dots all over it. Want to see what she looks like? Here she is. Forgetting everything else in the happiness of her find, Marcella caught up the rag doll and ran downstairs to show it to Grandma. Well, well, where did you find it, Grandmother said. It's old Raggedy Ann, she went on, as she hugged the doll to her breast. I had forgotten her. She's been in the attic for 50 years, I guess. Well, well, dear old Raggedy Ann. I will sew another button on her right away. And Grandma went to the machine drawer and got her needle and thread. Marcella watched the sewing while Grandma told her how she had played with Raggedy Ann when she was a little girl. Now, Grandma laughed, Raggedy Ann, you have two fine shoe-button eyes, and with them you can see the changes that have taken place in the world while you've been shut up so long in the attic. For Raggedy Ann, you have a new playmate and a mistress now, and I hope you'll both have as much happiness together as you and I used to have. Then Grandma gave Raggedy Ann to Marcella, saying very seriously, Marcella, let me introduce my very dear friend, Raggedy Ann. Raggedy, this is my granddaughter, Marcella. And Grandma gave the doll a twitch with her fingers in such a way that the rag doll nodded her head to Marcella. Oh, Grandma, thank you ever and ever so much, Marcella cried as she gave Grandma a hug and a kiss. Raggedy Ann and I will just have loads of fun. This is how Raggedy Ann joined the doll family at Marcella's house and where she began the adventures of Raggedy Ann, told in the following stories. So this first one is Raggedy Ann Learns a Lesson. One day the dolls were all left to themselves. Their little mistress had placed them all around the room and told them to be nice children while she was away. And there they sat and never so much as even wiggled a finger until their mistress had left the room. Then the soldier dolly turned his head and solemnly winked at Raggedy Ann. When the front gate clicked and the dollies knew they were alone in the house, they all scrambled to their feet. Now let's have a good time, cried the tin soldier. Let's all go in search of something to eat. Yes, let's all go in search of something to eat, cried all the other dollies. When the mistress had me out playing with me this morning, said Raggedy Ann, she carried me by a door near the back of the house, and I smelled something which smelled as if it would taste delicious. Then you lead the way, Raggedy Ann, cried the French dolly. I think it would be a good plan to elect Raggedy Ann as our leader on this expedition, said the Indian doll. At this, all the other dolls clapped their hands together and shouted, Hooray! Raggedy Ann will be our leader. So Raggedy Ann, very proud indeed to have the confidence and love of all the other dollies, said that she would be very glad to be their leader. Follow me, she cried, as her wobbly legs carried her across the floor at a lively pace. The other dollies followed, racing round the house till they came to the pantry door. This is the place, cried Raggedy Ann, and sure enough, all the dollies smelled something which they knew must be very good to eat. But none of the dollies was tall enough to open the door, and although they pushed and pulled with all their might, the door remained tightly closed. The dollies were talking and pulling and pushing, and every once in a while one would fall over and the others would step on her in her efforts to open up the door. Finally, Raggedy Ann drew away from the others and sat down on the floor. When the other dollies discovered Raggedy Ann sitting there, running her rag hands through her yarn hair, they knew she was thinking. "Shh," they said to each other, and quietly went over near Raggedy Ann and sat down in front of her. "There must be a way to get inside," said Raggedy Ann. "Raggedy says there must be a way to get inside," cried all the dolls. "I can't seem to think clearly today," said Raggedy Ann. "It feels as if my head were ripped." At this, the French dolly ran to Raggedy Ann and took off her bonnet. "Yes, there's a rip in your head, Raggedy," she said, and she pulled a pin from her skirt and pinned up Raggedy's head. "It's not a very neat job, for I got some puckers on it," she said. "Oh, that is so much better," cried Raggedy Ann. "Now I can think much more clearly." "Now Raggedy can think quite clearly," cried all the dolls. "My thoughts must have leaked out the rip before," said Raggedy Ann. Then the dollies all pushed and the door swung open. Oh my, such a scramble! The dolls piled over one another in their desire to be first at the goodies. They swarmed upon the pantry shelves and in their eagerness spilled a pitcher of cream, which ran all over the French dolly's dress. The Indian doll found some cornbread and dipped it in the molasses, and he sat down for a good feast. A jar of raspberry jam was overturned, and the dollies ate all of this until their faces were purple. The tin soldier fell from the shelf 3 times and bent one of his legs, but he scrambled right back up again. Never had all the dolls had so much fun and excitement, and they had eaten their fill when they heard the click of the front gate. They did not take time to climb from the shelves, but rolled or jumped off to the floor and scrambled back to their room as fast as they could, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs and jam along the way. Just as their mistress came into the room, the dolls dropped in whatever positions they happened to be in. "This is funny," said Mistress. "They were all left sitting in their places around the room. I wonder if Fido's been shaking them up." And then she saw Raggedy Ann's face and picked her up. "Why, Raggedy Ann, you're all sticky. I do believe you are covered with jam." And Mistress tasted Raggedy Ann's hands. "Yes, it's jam. Shame on you, Raggedy Ann. You've been in the pantry, and all the others too." And with this, the doll's mistress dropped Raggedy Ann on the floor and left the room. When she came back, she had on an apron and her sleeves were rolled up. She picked up all the sticky dolls, and putting them in a basket, she carried them out under the apple tree in the garden. There she placed her little tub and wringer, and she took the dolls one at a time and scrubbed them with a scrubbing brush and soused them up and down and this way and that in the soap suds until they were clean. Then she hung them all out on the clothesline in the sunshine to dry. There the dolls hung all day, swinging and twisting about the breeze as the breeze swayed the clothesline. "I do believe she scrubbed my face so hard she wore off my smile," said Raggedy Ann after an hour of silence. "Oh, it's still there," said the tin soldier, as the wind twisted him around so he could see Raggedy. "But I do believe my arms will never work without squeaking, they feel so rusted," he added. Then the wind twisted the little Dutch doll and loosened his clothespin so that he fell to the grass below with a sawdusty bump, and as he rolled over, he said, "Mama," in a squeaky voice. Late in the afternoon, the back door opened and the little mistress came out with a table and chairs. After setting the table, she took all the dolls from the line and placed them about the table. They had lemonade with grape jelly in it, which made a beautiful lavender color, and then little baby teeny weeny cookies with powdered sugar on them. After this lovely dinner, the dollies were taken in the house where they had their hair brushed and nice clean nightgowns put on. Then they were placed on their beds, and Mistress kissed them each good night and tiptoed from the room. All the dolls lay as still as mice for a few minutes, and then Raggedy Ann raised up on her cotton-stuffed elbows and said, "I've been thinking." "Shh," said all the other dollies. "Raggedy's been thinking." "Yes," said Raggedy Ann, "I've been thinking. Our mistress gave us a nice dinner out under the trees to teach us a lesson. She wished us to know that we could have had all the goodies we wished, whenever we wished, if we had behaved ourselves. And our lesson was that we must never take without asking what we could always have for the asking. So let us all remember and never try again to do anything which might cause those who love us any unhappiness." "Let us all remember," chimed the other dollies. and Raggedy Ann, with a merry twinkle in her shoe-button eyes, lay back in her little bed, her cotton head filled with thoughts of love and happiness.